Today's show is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Hard Rock Bet, the official sportsbook partner of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Jacksonville Jaguars. It's Week 18 and playoff spots are on the line. Think you know how it's going to play out? Build a same-game parlay on Hard Rock Bet and turn game day into a payday. If you miss kickoff, don't worry. Hard Rock Bet is live in-game betting, so you're never too late to the action. Find a winner and grab that player prop you meant to play. And live bet on college or pro football between snaps and 2 easy taps, baby. Plus, Hard Rock Bet, they offer new promos every single day. So if you haven't tried your first bet on Hard Rock Bet, there's still time for you to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you not only get your winnings, but also an extra $150 in bonus bets. Download the Hard Rock Bet app today and make your first deposit. What is going on, everybody? How are we doing? What a night. That was just riveting in my living room with my mother-in-law, my wife, my dog, pacing around. 80 points, thrilling ending. And the 49ers will now take on the Seattle Seahawks for the number 1 overall seed Saturday night, which we'll get into. Kind of, I feel like got screwed. In what world do the Ravens and the Steelers get the Sunday night game? Just in terms of the rest factor, right? But I listen, I got so much going on seating wise. We will dive right in to what we just witnessed, which was just fucking insane. Excuse my language, young children. If you're old, I don't really care. But, wow, I'm at a loss. I got a lot of takes I wrote down. We will dive right into it all. Obviously, that game was so incredible from an offensive standpoint. If you're like Nick Saban at your house with Miss Terry, you're probably throwing up in your mouth watching that defense. But it is what it is. The rest of the league, you know, from the Steelers to the Bills and the Eagles, the offense was not quite as great. The Jags and the Texans are rolling. Somehow the Tampa or Carolina, one of those two teams, has to win this game on Saturday afternoon and go to the playoffs. And an interesting story I saw today that Jay Glazer, fellow bald brother, put out about Matty Ice coming to be a GM, which I get fired up whenever I see former quarterbacks. But listen, I need you to subscribe. I need you to like the video. I need you to scream at each other in the comments. I need to share it with your friends. We are excited. I was kind of dozing at halftime. That second half is like, a jolt of Mountain Dew because that was awesome. So let's just dive right in. Let's go right to the end of the game. The Bears get the ball back down 4 with like a little over 2 minutes to go. They got 3 timeouts. I don't know a soul, and the majority of people in my life are 49er fans. I'm on a million text chains. I'm thinking it. You're thinking it. The Bears are going to score. The only question is, how fast do they score? And listen, these drives are tough, even when you're playing poor defenses. They have 15 plays. They go 63 yards. And I think the second to last play, I don't want to say they got a little greedy, because if the play works, he looks like a genius. And let's face it, there is a fine line between being a genius and being a failure. The hook and ladder worked earlier today in the Bills game, which put them in position to win the game. It's a historic play going back to when I was in college, when Chris Peterson ran it against Oklahoma. I actually watched that YouTube the other day. It was like 4th and 16 or something in regulation when Zabransky hit the hook and ladder. When it works, it is a cool play. And it did work in terms of the execution of the catch and the pitch. But it took a little extra time and he stayed in bounds. They don't have any timeouts. And the 49ers did a good job of gang tackling, and everyone's a little messed up. And by the time that they didn't have a choice, they had to spike the ball. They had 4 seconds, and let's face it, you get one play. And once you're in that scenario, the 49ers defense is like Fred Warner ain't walking through that door. Literally, he's on the sideline so he can walk around, but he's not walking to the middle of the field, right? You could have called a run. Now, if you do call a run and it doesn't work, and they're one of, if not the best running teams in the league, even though tonight they lean much more on the passing game, I think you get crushed. So you just go, hey, put it in my quarterback's hands. His athletic ability, which is something the 49ers don't really have an answer for because they don't have Fred Warner. They have no pass rush. That you just go, well, you kind of hope and pray. In these positions, when you get that close to the goal line, the field becomes so much wider than it does long. I actually think the Bears, and I bet most 49er fans would agree, would be more potent if they were at like the 12-yard line than if they're at the 2 or 3-yard line. And once he's forced to scramble, which you knew he would if something wasn't open immediately, even for a guy with a huge arm, and I think, we'll dive into both quarterbacks, but I think you could make the argument that Caleb has the strongest arm in the league. There definitely might be as strong of arms throughout the league. Josh Allen, no one has a stronger arm than this guy. But when you're in that spot, like if something's not open immediately, you got to make a play. The 49ers defensive lineman did a good job. He scrambles out, and then the field becomes very compacted. So his options are pretty limited. And his great skill of improvising and definitely throwing the ball down the field is negated a little bit. So, and let's face it, tonight, one downfall of his is he missed some layups. He had one throw tonight, a touchdown to Loveland, that was like something Mike Vick or Brett Favre would do. It's that 40-yard ball on a rope that there is no arc to it. It's just a straight rope. Like most, Josh Allen has that in the bag. Maybe like a younger Mahomes. No one else in the league has that pass in the bag. Purdy doesn't have that pass in the bag. He throws the arcing ball. There's nothing wrong with the arcing ball. It works. That was essentially the game winner to Juwan Jennings, the arcing ball over the middle. But there's a small percentage of guys that can throw that nowhere to be found. So he's got to make a quick decision. It's kind of all jumbled, and the Niners come away with a win. And I think one thing that was clearly on full display to the nation, that if you give the two best play callers, Ben Johnson and Kyle Shanahan, teams that don't have good defenses, they'll put up 80 points. And that was, I think there's two ways to look at it. One, because of the day. And listen, I enjoy, especially this, that was a great matchup. I was entertained. Now, I would not like that on a weekly basis. I would not like that on a game in, game out basis all over the league. But one situation like that, 2-11 win teams, Sunday Night Football, sign me up. It was extremely entertaining. Both the quarterbacks were making all sorts of plays out of their ass. Ricky Pearsall back was incredible. Luther Burden looks like Antonio Brown. I'm recording this right after the game. I hope he's okay. He was laying there at the end of the game, so hopefully he didn't get seriously injured. But that was great. And I think, one topic of conversation is, and listen, anytime you take over a shitty organization and you get them, I would expect the Bears win in a week, so they'll get to 12 wins. That's a remarkable turnaround. Liam Cohen takes over the Jags. I mean, the Jags consistently draft in the top 5. They are a clown organization under Shad Khan. He gets there, they're immediately good. Why? Liam Cohen's a stud. That's really, really impressive. And that division's not easy. Like the Colts are a train wreck, and they're still going to win 8 games. The Houston Texans are one of the hottest teams in the league. They're going to win 12. So, I mean, it's impressive what he's doing. But I would say when you watch Kyle Shanahan and you see Nick Bosa $30 million a year up with his girlfriend in the box, you see Fred Warner with his wife and his baby up in the box because he's got a shattered ankle. The game literally, right, George Kittle ruled out in the last, I don't know if it was late yesterday or early this morning, out. I think it was kind of trending that way all week. But I don't know. He's just one of the great 49ers of all time. And then probably, pound for pound, and there's a lot of pounds, one of the best players in league history, their left tackle. I wasn't even off recording with Colin. Purdy throws the pick 6. Trent's chasing him down, pulls his hamstring, out for the game. He coached that entire game without, I don't know, $100 million worth of player. Obviously, Fred and Nick have been gone for a while. Trent's a $30 million left tackle, and George is a $20 million tight end. And he's doing it with Ricky Pearsall, who, he's got like a J.J. McCarthy quality. Now, the difference is like Ricky Pearsall is a player, but he's injured all the time. And then, even tonight, he would get tackled and be like, oh, Ricky, get up. You're doing it with Kendrick Bourne. McCaffrey, he's just wearing him out. I wrote down he had 27 touches. He might have ended up with, it might have been 28 touches between carries, I think 23, and catches, I think it was 4. Let me double check. Yeah, 23 and 4. So 27 catches. I mean, his whole body's falling apart. Looks like he's pulled his back. He pulled his listen, he's not going to win it because they were the favorites at the beginning of the year, and that award is like, do you take over someone shitty and then win? Which is fair, which I have no problem. Ben Johnson, Mike Vrabel, and Liam Cohen, they took over crap, and they've taken them right to the playoffs. And all 3 teams are getting home games in the first weekend. Remarkable. But what Kyle's doing to be 60 minutes away with the team that he's rolling out there, and Robert Saleh's part of it too, even though tonight, like, he's just calling plays, keeping his fingers crossed, hoping they work. Don't blame him. Like, what's he supposed to do? He has no pass rush. They're last in the league in sacks. Their best edge rusher by a mile is an undrafted free agent that the Eagles couldn't get rid of fast enough. Bryce Huff, who's had one good season, like a 6-year career. And Alfred Collins, who was a second-round pick from Texas that most people thought the 49ers were on drugs taking that high. They got backups all over the place. Their best DB, Upton Stout, a rookie, weighs like 150 pounds, gets a concussion tonight. Lenore's really good player. I think he's a little overrated sometimes, but he's a solid starter. Safety play can be a little hit or miss. Can't really cover anybody. And they have a chance to win, if they win this final game, 13 games, and be the number 1 overall seed. That is absolutely insane. Now, again, I'm doing this right after the game, and I'm sure there are implications why they did the 2 games on Saturday. But the Niners got screwed. I would say Seattle got screwed as well. That game, like, I'm sorry, the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Baltimore Ravens should be forced to play on a short week. They are 2 teams that are average at best. What we saw out of the Steelers today was an embarrassment. And they get to play on Sunday night and get a normal week's rest. And the 49ers in Seattle in a game for the number 1 overall seed. I mean, let's face it, the Steelers and the Ravens are playing in a game to be the underdog the following week. They will be the underdog even though they're hosting the game, especially if they're playing, the Texans. So this game is for the number 1 overall seed, and they get forced to play on Saturday. I honestly don't understand it. Now, I'm sure there's going to be information coming out, exactly the logistics, why they did it. But I'm baffled by that. And it's just, that's a fantastic game. I mean, Kyle versus Mike McDonald. What Kyle has done, again, he's not going to win the award, but he's as deserving as he's ever been. And to have this team at 12 wins, even if they get smoked in this game in Seattle, is one of the most remarkable accomplishments I can ever remember. And I've been watching the 49ers since like 1993. This team has no business doing what they just did. I have no clue how, the Bears didn't literally score like every play they ran. But the defense came through. They made some plays. And offensively, I mean, Purdy came back. And over the last couple weeks, he has been just a dominant force. And tonight he did have the pick 6 to open up the game, which, he can force some balls into some spots. He did also throw an interception to CJ Gardner-Johnson that they got a little lucky that I get the rule, but he got bailed out. It was a bad decision. He did not know there was a flag. It was a poor decision. But other than those 2 plays, he was a dominant force on the field tonight. His mobility and accuracy combining, like, Caleb has these physical skills that just jump off the screen. My mother can see them. The power when he runs, the arm strength, just the zip on the ball. It's just jarring when you watch it. Purdy's like got this smooth athleticism. Like, he's not nearly as fast as Caleb, but he is pretty quick. And his instincts when he's scrambling are pretty high level. And the difference of the two quarterbacks, and Collinsworth hit on this tonight, is like Caleb missed some layups. For a guy that makes, and listen, I can live with missing layups. If you're hitting 10 threes, you miss some layups. I don't give a shit. Right? Yeah, he missed some, guys open in the flat. He missed Loveland on the corner. Like, it's kind of weird. He should hit those guys. It looks like an easy pass for him, but he misses them. He can be a little inaccurate, right? And tonight, I mean, they had a couple drops, but he was 25-42. He's not exactly Drew Brees. Or Purdy was 24-33, and most of his passes, like, hitting guys in stride. Because his entire game, and this is what I think the argument for people that don't like him, because we live in a physical skills type judgmental world. And I'm guilty of this too. I like guys with physical skills. But I've watched so much of Purdy, like, I appreciate what he brings to the table. And the timing and rhythm and just understanding. I mean, there was stuff in tonight's game where guys wouldn't be open and he goes to the check down so fast. And if the running back makes one guy's miss, it's an 11-yard, gain. And his understanding of this offense, which is an elite offense. It's been working for 30-plus years. If you watch the Elway doc, Mike Shanahan's been kicking ass and taking names with this thing since the mid-'90s. And his play caller is arguably the best in the league. So if you can run it at a high level and you're playing defenses like the Bears, you will score on every drive. You will have games where you can account for 5 touchdowns. And, Kyle gives him kind of carte blanche and lets him run it. Clearly, he has a lot of juice at the line of scrimmage. You hear him cannon plays, changing things at the line of scrimmage. But his legs, like, one element that they had early in this kind of Shanahan run when they started taking off with Jimmy Garoppolo did not have the athleticism. It's why they took the swing on Trey Lance. They wanted, like, this hybrid player, what the Bears get with Caleb Williams. You know what? Turns out Trey Lance wasn't that good of an athlete. It was like his athleticism was overrated because he was playing D1 AA. And when he got to the NFL, people were like, God, he's actually not that fast. And meanwhile, Purdy comes, like, Purdy's actually a really, really good athlete who's also really smart, really accurate, and kind of a gunslinger. Like, he's not Mr. like dink and dunk guy. That's not how he wants to play. He actually will make some throws where you're like, Brock, you do not need to do that. But when he's on like tonight, he is an unstoppable force, and he's been like that for 2 weeks in a row. Now, I understand the Bears defense. This isn't the 85 group, but that was really impressive because here's the thing. Like last week against Phillip Rivers, when your defense is that shitty, and it is that shitty, they're not good. They just don't have the players. It's not anyone's fault. It's not because they have a bad coordinator. It's not because they have a bad scheme. They just had a lot of injuries. They have no pass rush. You cannot have no pass rush in 2025, which is a passing league, and have any shot at success. It's literally impossible. But when your offense is basically scoring on every single drive, that's what they have to do. So there is no margin for error with the offense, especially tonight when the game starts with him throwing it to the other team and them scoring a touchdown. So, and obviously McCaffrey, who I thought for the first time all season kind of looked like the 2023 version. And by the end of the game, he was in a lot of pain. But he's, one thing the 49ers do a really good job of is they draft a certain type of guy. They acquire a certain type of guy. And toughness and just physicality is a huge part of their game. And Christian embodies all of that, right? Kittle embodies that. Trent Williams embodies that. And Christian was a fucking monster tonight. He was so good in the first half. He had over 100 yards. And he was just fantastic. And even the final drive when he caught that little screen where you could tell he was huffing and puffing, which a couple plays later he hits Jawan Jennings for what turns out to be the game winner. But, offensively from Purdy to, Ricky Pearsall tonight had 5 catches for 85 yards, and Kyle was just dialed in. I mean, both these coordinators, like I said, when you give them no resistance, it is not a fair fight. I mean, you watch all these coordinators around the league now. Weather's an aspect. It was a cold night in the Bay Area, and it was 50 degrees. Right? It's why I say it all the time. We can't relate to these Bills games. We can't relate to, a sleet, snow, 10-degree game. Have nothing in common with that. We don't live it. We don't understand it. We wait in traffic to go to Tahoe, and when we get too cold, we turn around and we come home. Right? And hell, I mean, shit, I moved 2-hour plane flight away, and it's 72 degrees today, sweated. So I think a huge element of it's a different level of football. You're not having, that score if you're playing in Lambeau last night. I understand that. But these guys, if you are not rushing the passer, if your guys are wide open, they will annihilate you. And once they find your weakness, they were just that was an incredible performance of offensive play calling. It was also a pitiful performance of defense. So one thing I wrote down, obviously both these teams are going to the playoffs. I mean, if the 49ers win next week, and I'll assume the Bears win next week, you're looking at the 1 and 2 seeds. So anytime you're the 1 and 2 seed, like you have had a fantastic season over the aggregate of the 4+ months you've been playing football. But you have no chance to win a Super Bowl if you're playing defense like that. None. I think even the most diehard 49er fan would admit that after an incredible win tonight. You cannot win a Super Bowl with that level of defense. It's not possible, right? Bears fans I thought you were going to win the game on that final drive. And if you had won the game and next week somehow you would end up with the 1 seed, you're probably going to be the 2 seed no matter what, even if you had won the night because Seattle, then the 49ers would have arrested people, Seattle would have won. You're not winning a Super Bowl, even though you have this dynamic offense. I'm saying Luther Burden reminds me like Antonio Brown. Like that guy is good. Loveland is, I didn't realize that was his first drop of the season. The 2 running backs, DeAndre Swift, I've always thought was kind of an underachiever. What Ben Johnson has done with him this year, he looks fantastic. Obviously, Manunjai, stud. Cole Kmet's a good player. They're just DJ Moore. I mean, they're stacked. Their offense, they don't even have Roma Dunze, who I would sneaky watch for to get traded this offseason to get some defensive help. They don't need all these wide receivers. But I just think that you cannot go far in the playoffs, even in 2025. And there were people at the league office tonight creaming their pants. They yearn for the league to look like that. Point after point, no tackling. That's a Roger Goodell wet dream right there. No physicality, just touchdowns. Everyone playing fantasy. Woohoo! That's what the league office have dreamed about that becoming the NFL because they think that'll draw the most casual fans, get the most women to watch, and have the greatest, total number of people watching. Means they can charge the most and make the most money. That's the whole game they're playing. That is the game they want. Now me, I like a little bit more resistance, but hey, I just grew up in the 90s. But it is what it is. And I think we'd all have to agree that when your defenses are that bad, your ceiling is limited, no matter how great your play callers are. And Kyle's been, arguably a top play caller in the league for over a decade. Ben Johnson the last couple years, I've called him the Midwest version of Kyle now all season long as the head coach, right? He's, as Chris Collinsworth said tonight, they are a running offense. He's got to be looking at the box score and seeing the 49ers ran 34 times for 200 yards. He's so jealous. He said, we only ran 22 times for 110 yards because both our quarterbacks threw for 300 yards. The difference in the game was the 49ers ran for 100 more yards on the ground. Technically 90, but and that accounts for time of possession, controlling the ball, not giving the ball back to Caleb. How many times tonight did the camera pan and there's Caleb sitting on the bench? So the best way in a situation that they're in to play good defense is not have to play defense. Keep them on the side. So, the 49ers held the ball for 6.5 more minutes and had 6 more first downs. So that could be the difference in an extra drive. That could be the difference in, an extra touchdown. That could be the difference in the game. It's, the margin for error. It's no different in a game that's the final score is 15-13 or a game that's final score is 42-38. It all comes down to a first down or 2 that change a possession, that force a punt, that maybe give you good field position. And did the Bears? Yeah, the Bears didn't even turn the ball over. Bears got to be saying, we didn't turn the ball over. We had a pick 6, and our quarterback accounted for, countless touchdowns, and we lost the game. So Caleb threw 2 touchdowns. Swift ran for 2 touchdowns. They had a pick 6 and a field goal, and they lost the game. If you would have told me at the start of this game that the Bears would end up with 38 points, I would have said the 49ers probably lose, right? I would have said, yes, probably 38-30, probably a high scoring game, but the 49ers probably definitely do not cover and lose the game. Instead they win. So that was fantastic. Now listen, that was a huge win for the 49ers. I can't get over that they are in this position to play for the number one overall seed, which would be pretty insane that they would never have to leave. Now, like I said, even if they win this game against Seattle, I still think their playoff games will be pretty difficult given their defensive situation. But if you win next week and you only got to win 2 60-minute games, right? And they're both at home, which they are desperate for a bye because I would imagine with Trent Williams pulling his hamstring that he's out this week, especially a short week. So maybe get George Kittle back, but you lose Trent Williams. And I do think the Trent Williams loss will be felt more against Seattle that has, more pass rushing prowess. And the Seattle's defensive line is just dramatically better than the Bears. It's a much different game against Seattle. Now, the Chicago Bears with Ben Johnson are a much more powerful offense than what's going on with Seattle, who can be a little hit or miss. They kind of are one wide receiver dependent. Charbonnet had a good game. But this has been a huge rivalry going back to Harbaugh and Pete Carroll, through Pete Carroll and Kyle, and now Mike McDonald and Kyle. So just a fantastic game Saturday night. A little mad that it's not Sunday. I think we're getting a little screwed. For some reason, Aaron Rodgers at 42 years old, who just, played one of the worst. That game, not all his fault, their offense missing guys, but we got to watch that. Potentially Snoop Huntley against Aaron Rodgers to get the 4 seed. That's on Sunday night. Like, guys, this isn't 2012. And I like that rivalry as much as anybody. But I feel like we can do better. Now the Bears just basically win, get the 2 seed. Tonight is going to suck for them, right? You were so close. You're driving. It felt like it was all about to happen. It cannot erase what has been the most remarkable turnaround I can remember in a while. You just won the freaking division, right? But you won it before this game even started with the Packers losing last night. But that is a massive accomplishment, right? You not only won the division, your star head coach, you made one of the teams in your division who had just dominated the division the last couple of years way worse because you stole their coach. You are now in a much better situation with coaching stability than the Green Bay Packers, whose coach is, it feels crazy to say, but people that are around that team say he's like coaching for his job, which I do think he would be hired immediately, but there's a pretty good chance they're going to go one and done. Now, they're also probably going to play the Bears in the first round, which is a pretty interesting wild card game. But I think you hold your head high. This is a little bit of a kick in the nuts. Anytime that you lose to a team that could not get a stop to save their life sucks. But you got a little greedy with the hook and ladder. But overall, you still won the division. You're hosting a game at Soldier Field. Like, that's pretty cool. That's a really big deal for the franchise. And this was a franchise that was in a bad spot. You guys had good players, but last year was really bad. Last year, you guys were like one of the laughing stocks of the league, right there with the Jets. It was losing game after game, firing coaches after Thanksgiving. And now you're playing the 49ers in a game for like the 1 or 2 seed with all the marbles on the table and Sunday night in front of 30 million people. Like, things change really, really fast. And as someone that just loves football, that wants the big brands, like I wish the Giants were good. I wish some of these other teams, the Cowboys, were better. It makes the league better, especially in the NFC. It's cool to see the Bears relevant. It's cool to see the Bears mattering because obviously the Lions fell off a cliff and the Packers are just in shambles right now with their injuries. But what a game. What a performance by Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, Pearsall. Pearsall looks like a pretty good pick. He's got to stay healthy. When he can just stay on the field, he's one of those guys. If he's on the field, he's awesome. But he can just disappear for a month. It's like, what's his injury? It's like, calf, hammy, knee. Like, well, which one? He's like, well, combination of all 3. We're not, Kyle's kind of being mum about it. It's like, well, that's not ideal. But just what a game. What a game. Still can't believe the hook and ladder. That was a little greedy. Cost them because I think if they just run a normal play, maybe get out of bounds, you get multiple plays. With the 4 seconds, you only get the one play. And just, goal line, I don't care if you're playing the best defense of all time or the worst defense of all time. If the play doesn't hit right away, you can derail in whether it's Peyton Manning, Caleb Williams, or, pick shitty quarterback X. The play can fall apart really, really fast. And it felt like it did right there. Other than that, I don't even know. That was crazy. That was a roller coaster ride. Speaking of something, let's dive into a couple other things. Speaking of things that was not a roller coaster ride, the Steelers' performance today was an embarrassment to football. It really was. And icing on the cake, that news came out after the game that Darnell Washington break his arm. So DK Metcalf is not coming back. Obviously, he's out for Week 18 because he's suspended. They just lose a guy that they have been very dependent on throughout the season, who's just a really good player in Washington. Their passing game was just inept. Their pass rush, Myles Garrett, I saw the clip at halftime of the NBC, said he thought they were spending more time trying to slow him down than they were worried about winning the game, which I think is kind of trying to toot his own horn a little bit, but I don't blame him. But part of the point is, like, what was that? I'm so mad at myself. I had money on them. And then the stat comes out, and me and Colin talked about it because it kind of went viral, that the last 5 years they have played a team who has been 8 games plus under 500. They have lost all the games, and one of them's a tie. So basically a game in late December as a big favorite. They always lose in this situation. And I get these divisional games. It's one thing if you're playing a divisional opponent. It's like, Cleveland's kind of had a weird year, but they're going to go 7-10 or 8-9. It's like they're a respectable, solid team. The Cleveland Browns have been an embarrassment. And for you to have 6 points the majority of the game, the final drive, Rodgers made some nice throws, but sometimes on those final drives, it just gets a little chaotic. Like, that did not represent what we watched all weekend. When you're in a position, if you just beat the Browns, the next week means nothing. You can rest everybody. For you to lose that game, it's just, I just can't take them seriously. I really can't. They sucked me back in a couple weeks ago because they were playing good football. In the DK situation, like, let's face it. Like, listen, there's a lot of information with the DK. I have no clue what happened. But clearly, the league is never going to allow anyone to hit fans, to hit the customers. That's never going to fly. These leagues are very sensitive with that type of stuff. And he had a lot of issues in Seattle, getting personal foul calls. They were just kind of over him. And for you to make that trade and get in a position where he's literally your only wide receiver, and even today, Bill Cowher mentioned this after the game. Jaylen Warren had like 12 carries for like 65, 70 yards. It was why were you so obsessed with passing it with Aaron Rodgers like it's 2017? Run the ball. And they just didn't. They got away from it. I thought their offensive coordinator was like a run game guy. So listen, most of these things with coaches and quarterbacks end ugly. Most people do not end in like legendary status. Most people do not go out like Derek Jeter, his last at bat with a hit, or John Elway, his last game, or Peyton Manning with the Super Bowl. Usually it's pretty ugly. And this Aaron Rodgers experience hasn't been that ugly start to finish, but it's been a little weird. And I'm not blaming him. I'm not blaming Tomlin. But the combination, the end result, you lose the Ravens, you're going to go 9-8 and miss the playoffs. I don't ever want to hear if they lose this game against the Ravens about Tomlin returning and Aaron Rodgers returning. If I was a Steeler fan, I'd be like, I give you the power to be like, I quit. No fucking way. We are not doing this again. We are not doing it a year later, a year older. We're not going through this again. We draw a line in the sand. Can we have some balls and go, can we make some changes for the love of God? I mean, that being said, it wouldn't shock me if the Steelers end up winning this game. But we'll see if Lamar can return. But what an embarrassment. I mean, truly, if you're a Steeler fan, that felt, they've had some low moments over the last couple of years, weird endings. That felt low. It's one thing to lose in the playoffs to Josh Allen, to Lamar Jackson, to Kansas City, to whatever, right? It's another thing with the division on the line to just cruise into this last week, get like a week 18 bye essentially, because you're locked into the 4 seed, to lose to the Cleveland Browns. You also lost to Joe Flacco and the Cincinnati Bengals earlier this season. The Bills-Philly game, I'm not even sure what to say because the Eagles were kicking their ass in the first half. That defense looked awesome. The Bills' offensive line is a problem. They're not that good. If you have a good defensive line, you can get after him, and they were getting after Josh Allen. They sacked him 5 times. Obviously, his ankle's a little banged up. That being said, they still had a chance to win. Made some incredible plays on that last drive, including a hook and ladder. And listen, when you're a player of Josh's caliber, and in my opinion, he's one of the most talented players in the history of the league, you just got to make that pass. You got to hit that ball. Now, at the end of the day, making or missing that pass, it's not going to cost them the division. Clearly, the Patriots you're going to beat the Dolphins. Miami's not going into New England next week and winning. Like the division was over because of other previous games. But in that spot, like you got to win it. And the Eagles, same thing. Like the first half, A.J. Brown, Jalen was playing awesome. And then they have 17 yards in the second half. I don't know what to make of either team. I know this. I do not trust either one. Now, the Eagles have way more talent. When they have a good offensive drive, you're like, God, they got good players. A.J., Devontae, Goddard, Saquon. Like, how do you stop this offense? And then they just disappear and do nothing forever. And when that defense is rolling, like, it wouldn't shock me if the Eagles won a couple playoff games or got bounced in the first round. I'm a little less confident, and I would love to see the Buffalo Bills make the Super Bowl, to win a Super Bowl. I think it would be really cool for the league. But I'm about as confident as they're doing that as that they might lose in the first round. They are a bizarre team. Clearly, his ankles rolled a couple times. He'll have drives where he's not moving that well, but then the final drive, he's moving pretty well. They're very dependent on him just pulling plays out of the crevices of his body. And when he does it, it's incredible. But, then he'll just miss a wide open Shakir in the back of the end zone that would have won the game. Now, it gets back to the extra point on the first touchdown. If they just execute that, they kick an extra point, they win the game. They don't even have to go for 2, which I do respect. I guess, though, there's not like, what do they have to lose? Right? It's not like if they don't get this 2-point conversion, they're losing the division. So it's kind of with house money. They're locked into a wild card spot. They feel pretty comfortable playing the Patriots, who there's a decent chance it's the 2-7. And the Patriots versus them, which would probably be a Saturday or Sunday night game, which sign me up for that. But I'm not confident they're winning. I know that. I'm not confident in the Bills. And they were a team that, most people coming into the season thought this is the year. And right now you cannot feel confident because you have 0 points going into the fourth quarter of a game at home. I get the Eagles are good on defense, but that's just unacceptable. It can't happen. I mean, it really can't happen. Now, one of the drives was he was stopped at the goal line essentially, but still, I mean, that's one where I don't even know what to say. It's all good. They're going to get judged on the playoff games. And if they win a couple and they're in the AFC Championship game, then we'll forget about this moment. But I think we all see a scenario where they easily could be a one-and-done team, which is crazy to say that, I think most people would tend to agree they have the best player in the league playing quarterback for their team. What else happened today? Bryce Young, in a game where if they win, they would have won the division. Now, Seattle had to be the biggest lock of the day. They dominate on the road. They have a massive talent gap between them and Carolina. Bryce Young threw for 54 yards. Like, you're not beating a 13-win team when your quarterback throws for 54 yards at home. And I just think you watch Carolina, who I have zero faith. I mean, every once in a while he'll make a play scrambling around. I just don't think he's a good player. And then Baker Mayfield threw for over 300 yards, but he had multiple picks. He had a fumble where he got sacked from behind. The Bucs are in complete shambles. They've lost a bunch of games in a row. They have been, like, objectively, I feel like one of the worst teams in the league now for a while. They find ways to lose every game. They just don't look very good when you watch them. I mean, defensively, they're in shambles. Offensively, they're getting a little healthier, but it's not like they score a bunch of points. I think the final score today was 20-17, but they scored a late touchdown, like with 50 seconds left to go in the game. I mean, it was 20-10 with under 2 minutes to go in the game. And they're playing the Dolphins. They're not playing the Eagles here. So I just think this game, these are two teams, let's be real, don't deserve to make the playoffs. They do not deserve to make the playoffs. The only reason is because of this stupid rule that one of these teams has to make the playoffs. But when you watch them play, they are not playoff teams. They are terrible. And I'll promise you this, whoever wins that game on Saturday afternoon and whoever they play in the first round, everyone and their mother is going to bet on the road team to beat them. That being said, the way gambling works, Tampa or Carolina probably ends up winning the game or covering. But that's a terrible game Saturday. If you told me it's like, hey, man, I got to do some family stuff. I'll be ready to go for Seattle and the 49ers, and I love football. I wouldn't blame you at all. Wouldn't blame you at all. Two of the hottest teams in the league right now are the Jags and the Texans. Listen, the Jags were in a tough spot because once yesterday happens and the Colts are eliminated, you go, are the Colts going to mail it in? Well, because Phillip Rivers is playing, they're going to get a spirited effort at home, and they did. But, like, it was just a weird spot. And obviously the Texans had won, so the Jags have to hold serve, and they got it done. So you're looking at two teams. I mean, it's crazy to say. It's not unrealistic to think that the Jags and the Texans are playing each other in the AFC Championship game. Now, depending on the way the seeding ends up, maybe they matched up in the first round, so that's not even possible, which would be a pretty big break for the other teams in the AFC, like the Patriots, the Bills, and the Broncos, given that one of these two teams will get knocked out in the first round, where they clearly are two teams that can beat anybody. I've been high on the Texans since the beginning of the season. Obviously got off to a slow start. They're fucking good. And I'll give the Jags their due. They're really good as well. And they have offensive pieces. Their defense is really good. Their team is just so well coached. They have a physical nature to them. That's the one thing with the Texans and the Jags. Like, they are physical football teams. You know, this is not like the Niners and the Bears defense. Like, you will get cracked. So props to those two teams. That's a division that I think everyone kind of shits on, like both the Southern divisions do. And the irony is the NFC South, or excuse me, the NFC South, there's not a hotter team right now than the New Orleans Saints. See Tyler Shuck? I honestly didn't watch much of the game, but I went back and just watched all of his passes today during halftime of the Bills-Eagles game. I mean, he looks fantastic. His deep ball accuracy, he's good over the middle. He's got good arm strength, his athleticism. He's just good. I mean, they're just hot. They're playing really, really good football. And I saw the stat that they did it without like three of their wide receivers, their center, their guard, their running backs. It's like he's playing with me, you, and three other guys and just looking like a really, really good player. I love it when a guy like that, it's like, guys, they just took him high in the second round. They're like, he's done enough. They're not going to draft him. They weren't drafting a quarterback anyway this year. You seen the quarterback class? Like, who are they drafting? Speaking of drafting a quarterback, you got to give the Raiders credit. Tanking is not something that people do in the NFL because it's kind of impossible, but they really tried. They told Max Crosby, we're going to refuse to put you on the field. Brock Bowers, you're going on injured reserve. And you know what? The Giants, you're going to kick our ass. Now it comes down to one game and one man standing in their way. And I would not put it past him at all for Andy Reid to attempt to ruin the Raiders season. So these are long, historic rivals, though it hasn't been obviously much of a rivalry of the last decade plus, really for the last 20 years because the Raiders haven't been any good. But this is an interesting game, right? Because the Chiefs, they're rolling out a quarterback who is not any good. And they can lose clearly to anybody. They just played the Titans a couple weeks ago and got throttled. So I think the Raiders, if Pete Carroll, if I'm John Spytek and I'm Mark Davis and I'm Tom Brady, and I go, Pete, I need you to throw this game. I cannot have you always compete. That is not what we're doing. And if he says, he's not going to cooperate, I'm probably going to fire him next week anyway. I'm firing him on Monday or Tuesday. And I will give someone a raise who will listen and cooperate with me, because tanking will ruin leagues. It has had a huge negative impact in the NBA because people tank all season. In the NFL, it's borderline impossible. Look at the Browns. They had no business winning today. They're literally the Giants. You know why? Because no players care at all about draft picks. Max Crosby said it last week. I don't give a shit about the draft pick. I am paid to play 60 minutes when we play another opponent to dominate that game. There's no guarantee the draft pick. Like, listen, I think Fernando Mendoza is a very, very fascinating prospect. I've seen a lot of fascinating prospects not be able to play in the NFL. So the Raiders thing, they took care of business today in really, really good fashion. I mean, the Giants destroyed them. But this game, I'm telling you, this thing could get weird. And if I'm the Chiefs, I'm Andy and Veach. I'm sitting down with Clark Hunt, and I said, we're going to lose this game. And we're going to ruin their chances at this quarterback. Again, maybe the Dante Moore comes out as well. But props to the Raiders because they got it done. And last but not least, I saw this story today from Jay Glazer that Arthur Blank, the Falcons play tomorrow against the Rams. And really quick, Hard Rock bet. I like tomorrow. I'm going to take the Falcons plus 7.5. I just think that game has some weirdness written all over it. That thing could just get weird and really weird really quick. You know, the Rams are coming off this Thursday night game, so they get a long rest. They fire their special teams coordinator. A lot of weird stuff's been going on with Puka. We'll see, Devontae's banged up. I just think that game would not shock me. Bijan Robinson, if this thing just gets weird. If it gets weird. And if it doesn't get weird and the Falcons were to lose and they just maintain a disaster, Jay Glazer reported that Matt Ryan has been contacted by Arthur Blank about being essentially his John Elway, what John Elway did for the Denver Broncos. And I always like all these guys, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, if they wanted to be a head coach, be an offensive coordinator, be a personnel guy, they'd be incredible. Their knowledge of football, their love of football, but it's hard in all their positions. You're seeing it with Tom Brady. Like, Tom wants to kind of be the puppet master, but he also wants to be a Baker's Bay in Florida, which I don't blame him at all. Playing golf, hanging out, having cocktails, like fucking around on the water. I would too. But you can't kind of be the John Spytek's overlord and be screwing around, in Florida. That's not the way it works. John Elway is at Gaza Ranch and the Madison Club in Palm Springs now. But when he was the GM of the Broncos, he was in the office every day because it is a 24/7 job when you are the GM. And if Matt Ryan does do it, and I think, listen, he would come in behind the 8 ball because John Elway had ran an AFL team. He had worked in business. He had done a lot of other things by the time he took that role. I think it was like 2010. He had been out of the league for 12 plus years, like doing different things, working with other aspects, because being a player and being an executive or a coach are dramatically different things. Look at Vrabel. Got out of football as a player, started as a quality control guy and worked his way up. Same thing with D'Amico. You have to learn your craft. Now, the one thing you can do as a personnel guy, because Matt Ryan's going to be wheeling and dealing with agents. No, he doesn't know any of these guys. You think he can hop on the phone like John Schneider or Howie or John Lynch and do all this stuff? John Lynch is a good example. When he got the job, right, he had never been a personnel guy. He'd been calling games, a lot like Matt Ryan. The key is you have to hire immediately a stud. Your right-hand guy becomes like your pseudo GM. John Elway had that when he was the GM of the Broncos. He had Matt Russell. He had Adam Peters. He had an elite personnel department. And they built a great team. So Matt Ryan, I don't know his knowledge of like the scouting community, but like he's never scouted a player. And there's a difference of game planning a guy's strengths and weaknesses and setting a draft board, setting a free agency board, understanding the values of individual players based on their numbers. He's had Tom Condon make calls to Thomas Dimitroff. Matt's going to want $150 million, 75 guaranteed, fucking hang up. We'll take nothing less. It's a little bit different when you're on the other end of that phone call. And you have to manage down, you have to manage up, you have to deal with an owner. Like, it's complicated. It's not an easy job. But I respect any one of these guys that has made an ungodly amount of money, which he has, and wants to dive into the fire. Because there ain't off days. You're working 7 days a week. This ain't work-life balance like they talk about on Instagram. I'll promise you, that shit don't exist in the NFL. You know, even as a player, as a quarterback, where you worked more than any of the other players, you still got way more time off than the coaches and the GMs. That's not the way when you're an executive. So if you do it, there's no half in, half out. And obviously, I would imagine it would not be cheap to get his services. But if he was going to have any success, and it couldn't be going worse than what the hell's been going on there, right? I mean, what they've become is pretty embarrassing. And I respect Arthur Blank, going to a guy he knows. But there's a fine line of like hiring John Elway and having him be very successful, or what we've seen with John Lynch, and like when Jeff Saturday hired, or when Jim Irsay hired Jeff Saturday, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. And you are very, very dependent on other people. And I don't know your Rolodex of knowing people. Part of the way John Lynch was able to hire Adam Peters, because he used to call John Elway when he was bored and be like, can I just come to your draft meetings? I want to just learn what you guys are doing. That's when he was calling games for Fox. So Elway would bring him into draft meetings. Who would he sit next to? Adam Peters. That's how he just established a relationship. And like, has Matt Ryan been doing that? Does Matt Ryan just call, I don't know, Jason Light or wherever, the Falcons, like, can I sit on draft meetings? Has he ever seen that side of it? Because if you haven't, there's just no way you just show up and be like, hey, I want to be a venture capitalist. I work at a bank. That's kind of different, man. It's not, it doesn't really work that way, right? So I'm fascinated. I want it to happen. I think it's a great storyline. It's just cool if you're a Falcons fan, but he would need help. And it'd be fascinating to see what he would do if he did get the gig. But I like stories like that. I always admire these guys that just miss it. And there's just, like I said, there's no, you can't, listen, Tom Brady's improved immensely on television. But like these stories about him telling you got to hire Chip Kelly and he's, playing 9 holes. Like, hey, it ain't not going to work that way. It's impossible. It's not the way the sport works. You got to be all in. What do they say? 10 toes down, right? All in the deep end of the pool. There's no like, I'll just show up, a couple days a week, remote in. Like, there's no remote work in the National Football League. When I saw the headline that Paul DePodesta worked for the Browns for 10 years remotely in San Diego, I honestly I don't follow the Browns like every single day, read every article. Maybe that was a well-known thing in Cleveland Browns land. No wonder that was a fucking disaster. He got to live in San Diego and work remotely with the football team. What a joke. So Matt Ryan, if you're going to do it, make sure you hire good personnel people, good cap people, because it's a really, really hard job. Adios.